Good evening, I'm Driti Atri, and tonight on Skyline, we are asking one uncomfortable question. Is the American dream quietly collapsing for Indians? Ladies and gentlemen, for years, Indians saw the United States as the ultimate destination. Better salaries, better lifestyle, better future. But tonight, behind the shiny image of Silicon Valley and New York, a very different reality is definitely emerging. Mass layoff, visa panic, anti-Indian backlash online, AI replacing workers, and thousands of Indian professionals suddenly realizing that one email can destroy years of sacrifice. And yes, at the very same time, another debate is exploding inside America itself. Why are companies laying off Americans while still hiring thousands through H-1B visas? Why are Indian workers becoming the face of a larger political battle? And is AI now preparing to replace the same workforce that helped build Silicon Valley? Tonight, we break down 8 explosive stories exposing the growing uncertainty surrounding Indians in America. And we begin with controversy that is now creating outrage across social media and corporate America. Amazon is now facing massive backlash in the United States after reports reveal that the company received certification for more than 33,000 H-1B linked positions, despite laying off nearly 30,000 workers across multiple reconstructing bases. And suddenly, one explosive debate has turned to the center of American politics. Why are corporations firing employees while still bringing in foreign workers? While the controversy exploded after viral social media posts highlighted federal labor certification data connected to Amazon's hiring pattern. In fact, one user accused the company of creating an infinite labor pool while American workers were losing their jobs. And that post alone, it received massive engagement online and triggering emotional argument across political and tech communities. But this story, it is much bigger than Amazon itself. Because the H-1B visa system, it has quietly become one of the most controversial issues in the American economy. US companies argue that they need skilled foreign talent to remain globally competitive. But critics argue that corporations use the system to suppress wages and create dependency among migrant workers. And Indians sit directly at the center of this battle because they dominate the H-1B workforce, right? Well, according to federal data, software developers alone accounted for over 151,000 certified H-1B linked positions, and that too in the just first half of fiscal year 2026. California alone received more than 152,000 certified positions, proving how dependent Silicon Valley remains on immigrant engineering talent. But if we see emotionally, many Americans see something very, very different here. They see tech layoffs happening everywhere while companies, they continue applying for foreign workers certification. And during economic uncertainty, that creates anger very, very quickly. But wait, for Indian professionals, this whole situation, it is deeply uncomfortable because many are now being blamed for problems that they didn't even create. Most H-1B workers, they are simply trying to build careers and support their families. But political narrative often simplify complicated economic reality into emotional slogans. And the fear inside American communities, it is growing every single day because every time layoffs increase, anti-immigrant sentiments becomes louder. Suddenly, Indians are not just workers anymore. They become symbols inside America's larger economic anxiety. And perhaps the harshest reality is this. Even many H-1B workers themselves no longer feel safe in the very companies that once desperately hired them. Because, let's be honest, today's corporate America, loyalty and performance, they are no longer guaranteed of the survival. Now, talking about the second story of the day, a US-based recruiter has now revealed something deeply disturbing about modern corporate culture. Good performance may no longer protect employees from the layoffs. That's right, for decades, workers were taught a very simple formula here. Work hard, stay loyal, deliver result, and your career, it will remain secure. But according to recruiter Shreya Mehta, modern layoffs, they do not work like that anymore. Well, she warned the employees that layoffs are often planned very quietly for weeks and even months before the public announcement arrives. And by the time workers do realize what is happening, leadership has usually already finalized the decision here. Well, the warning sign, they are very subtle but they are chilling. While managers suddenly becoming unusually polite. Unexpected skip level meetings appearing on calendars, projects being reprioritized, hiring freezes inside specific teams, and executives quietly leaving without replacement. Well, do you remember that vogue words like streamlining or high impact reconstructing starting to appear in the meetings? Here, employees they often ignore all these signals because they believe that strong performance rating will save them. But Mehta, she says that the assumption it is dangerously outdated. You know her most brutal line, it shocked social media. Layoffs are not performance reviews. They are spreadsheet exercise. Can you think how psychologically devastating that statement really is? A worker may spend years sacrificing his personal life for the company, missing vacation, working weekends, staying online at midnight, taking stress home every single day, and then suddenly, one reconstructing decision wipes out entire teams regardless of their loyalty or their performance. And this fear, it is even more intense for Indian workers in America because for many immigrants, losing a job is not only a financial crisis anymore. It can become an immigration emergency for them. Well, the pressure it becomes unbearable. While many Indian professionals already live under constant anxiety due to H-1B dependency, green card backlogs, and family obligations. Well, their parents, they depend on them financially. Children study in American schools. Mortgages, insurance, and visa timeline, it becomes interconnected. So when layoffs begin, workers do not simply fear unemployment. They fear losing the entire life that they spent years building abroad. And you know that fear, it is now forcing many Indians to ask a very difficult question that would have sounded shocking 10 years ago. Is moving to America still worth it anymore? Now, speaking of the American dream, a LinkedIn post by Indian professional Anushka Sharma has now triggered a major debate online after that person warned that moving to America does not magically solve life's problem. In fact, that person argued that for many Indians, chasing the US dream at a wrong stage of life could actually destroy financial stability instead of improving it. You know, that personal statement, it hit a nerve because for decades, America has been treated almost like a guaranteed update in Indian middle class culture. While families spent crores sending their children abroad believing that success is automatic once somebody reaches the US. But Sharma challenged that mindset and that too very directly. Well, Sharma specifically warned three types of groups to reconsider blindly moving to America. Professionals already earning very strong salaries in India, freshers without any specialized skill, and people who are financially stable. You know what is the reason behind that? Because India itself has changed, and that too dramatically. 10 years ago, America offered what? Opportunities that many Indians simply could not access at home. But today, look what's happening around you. India's startup ecosystem, it is exploding. Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, they are all full of global companies offering six-figure salaries by Indian standards. Remote work has also changed the equation completely, by the way. And in the meantime, life in America has become far more expensive and unstable. Wait, let me point it out. Rent is exploding, healthcare costs are terrifying, student loans are massive, visa pathways are uncertain, layoffs are spreading across tech companies. And perhaps the biggest shock for many Indians abroad is emotional isolation. Now in India, even stressful lives often include family support system, domestic help, social network, and emotional familiarity, right? In America, many migrants suddenly find themselves cooking, cleaning, managing their own bills, and surviving alone while working under a lot of professional pressure. In fact, social media, it still glamorizes the American dream though. But many immigrants quietly admit that reality it looks very, very different from Instagram. Behind luxury apartment photos are loneliness, deaths, burnout, and immigration anxiety. And while Indians continue debating whether America is still worth chasing, another disturbing story is now damaging the image of Indians abroad even further. United States authorities have now shut down an Indian-based call center operation accused of stealing millions of dollars from elderly Americans through fake tech support scam. Well, according to investigators, victims, many of them elderly and vulnerable, received very frightening pop-up messages warning that their computers had been infected with viruses or malware. The victims, they were told to call support number connected to the scam center, where operators convicted them to pay huge sum of fake technical services. In fact, some victims even gave remote access to their computers, exposing bank details, personal data, and personal information. Here, the FBI says Americans lost more than $2 billion to tech support scams last year alone. In the meantime, shamefully, 4 Indian nationals were convicted in connection with this case. While the US-based telecom executives, they also admitted enabling fraudulent operations through call routing system. Here, investigators claim that some operators even advised the scammers on how to avoid complaint and escape detection. Now, let's take a pause for a moment. Here is why the story matters far beyond the crime itself. Because stories like this, it shape public perception about Indians abroad. Millions of Indians are living in the United States. They are not scammers. They are hard-working students. They are doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs. But a few large fraud cases receive enormous media attention and create stereotypes that hurt the wider community emotionally and socially. And let's be honest, in today's social media environment, negative narrative, it spreads extremely fast. One scam story becomes proof for people that are already angry about immigration, outsourcing, and job competition. And this is why many Indians abroad feel frustrated. They work honestly for years, building their reputation, and then a few criminal network, it damaged trust for everyone. And now, at a time when anti-immigrant tensions are already rising, every viral scandal risks making public anger even worse. And that anger, let me tell you, it is becoming visible not only politically, but culturally too. Let's hop on to the next story tonight. A viral video showing a large Indian gathering dancing on the streets of downtown Delhi has now triggered intense reaction online. Here, some users celebrated the event as cultural pride and community celebration. But others reacted furiously, accusing Indians of making part of America unlivable. That's a big word. Suddenly, a much deeper issue emerged: America's growing cultural anxiety among the immigrants. The Indian population in the United States, it has grown rapidly over the last decade. Indian restaurants, festivals, languages, traditions, they are becoming more and more visible across major American cities. In fact, entire neighborhoods are transforming culturally. Now, for immigrants, this feels natural, right? They are simply preserving their identity and community in a foreign land. But for many Americans, these changes create discomfort, specifically during period of economic stress and political polarization. This is where things become dangerous. Because when inflation rises, jobs become unstable and immigration debates, they intensify. Immigrant communities often become emotional targets. Viral videos are then used online to push broader anti-immigrant narrative. In fact, one public celebration suddenly becomes evidence that immigrants are changing America too quickly. Now, let's be clear here. One viral clip does not define millions of Indians abroad. But online outrage, it really cares about this type of events, right? Well, for many Indians in America, they are now quietly worried about something bigger here. Well, growing anti-India frustration, it eventually changed how Indians are treated socially and politically in the US. Because let's be honest, beneath the surface, cultural tension appears to be rising faster than many people do realize. The global technology industry is mourning the passing away of Indian origin Microsoft veteran Soma Segar. That person passed at the age of 59. And his story, it represents the extraordinary impact Indians have had on the global technology revolution itself. Mr. Soma Segar, he joined Microsoft in 1989 and became one of company's most influential leaders during the rise of modern computing. While he contributed to multiple Windows releases, helped develop developer ecosystem and played a major role in expanding Microsoft's engineering footprint, and that too globally. But perhaps his biggest contribution, it was helping shift technology innovation beyond America alone. He supported the growth of tech hubs in Hyderabad, China, Israel, Boston, transforming India into one of the world's largest engineering and software centers. Now at Microsoft, he oversaw platforms like the Visual Studio and NET, technologies used by millions of developers worldwide. Later on, he became a major investor in AI and cloud startups through Madrona Venture Group. Even shortly before he passed away, he was recognized among the top early stage investors shaping the future of artificial intelligence and enterprise technology. And tonight, many Indians seeing his journey as symbolic of something much bigger. Indian talents helped build modern Silicon Valley system. But now there is a painful irony emerging. The same AI revolution leaders like Soma Segar helped advance is actually creating fear among the global workforce, because artificial intelligence is no longer just assisting workers, it is beginning to replace them. And the next story may explain why that fear it is spreading so rapidly. Coming back to the layoff world, Indian workers are filmed to train AI. That's right, a disturbing claim is now spreading online that footage of Indian factory workers is being captured and used to train artificial intelligence-powered robots for global technology companies. According to reports, workers performing repetitive tasks such as sorting, packing, assembling, or moving the objects, they are allegedly being recorded so that AI system can study human motion pattern and learn industrial behavior. Now imagine the symbolism of this moment here. Workers may unknowingly be helping train the companies or machines that could eventually replace their own jobs. And that is why this story is triggering fear across manufacturing and technology sector worldwide. Because AI companies are racing to build robots who are capable of operating warehouses, factories, logistics system with very minimal human supervision. Well, to teach the robots how humans move efficiently, companies require a lot of amount of real-world moment data. And countries like India with huge manufacturing workforce, they become valuable source of training footage, right? Here critics say that this raises a lot of ethical concern. Well, were workers fully informed about this? Did they truly had the consent? Who owns the data generated from human labor? And if automation destroys millions of jobs later, who benefits financially from the data workers unknowingly helped create? This is the darker side of AI revolution that many people rarely discuss publicly. Well, for years, automation, it mainly threatened factory machinery jobs, right? Now, AI threatens both physical labors and office work simultaneously. White-collar workers, they fear software automation, while blue-collar workers fear robotics. And for countries like India, where millions depend on manufacturing and service sector employment, the long-term consequences could be enormous. And in the meantime, Indian tech workers already living in America are facing another terrifying reality right now: a 60-day countdown clock. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine spending 10 years building a life in America, buying a house, raising your children, paying taxes, waiting endlessly for green card. And then one morning you lose your job. Suddenly a clock starts ticking. 60 days. Well, that is the brutal reality facing thousands of Indian H-1B workers across the United States today. Under the US immigration rules, laid off H-1B workers, they generally get only 60 days to find another employer, change visa categories, or leave the country entirely. And during mass tech layoff, that deadline, it becomes terrifying. Because let's be honest here, finding a new sponsor, and that too in a weak job market, it is incredibly difficult. Interviews take time, immigration paperwork takes time, companies hesitate to hire during uncertainty, and every passing day, it increases a lot of panic. Now for years, many laid-off workers relied on temporary backup options, right? Switching briefly to a visitor visa while continuing their job search. But immigration lawyers, they now warn that US authorities are reportedly examining such applications far more aggressively. Applications are receiving greater scrutiny, officers are demanding stronger evidence. Some workers fear denial, it could suddenly force them to leave the country. And this transforms layoff into something far bigger than unemployment for the Indians here. It becomes a legal crisis, a financial crisis, and an emotional crisis. Families with children in American schools suddenly face uncertainty. Mortgage payments continue, dependent visas worry about losing the status. In fact, parents in India depend financially on relatives abroad, and workers trapped in green card backlogs, they feel emotionally imprisoned by the entire system. Many Indians in America now describe life as living under permanent anxiety here. One reconstructing, one project cancellation, one budget cut, and years of sacrifice can suddenly collapse overnight. And perhaps the saddest reality is this. Despite all the fear, many immigrants continue smiling publicly because the American dream, it remains emotionally powerful inside Indian society. Well, even when the reality behind the dream, it becomes increasingly unstable. And finally tonight, there is one reason American companies quietly love hiring Indians. Not just because Indians are intelligent, not just because Indians are technically skilled, but because Indians are trained from childhood to tolerate pressure, sacrifice, discomfort, and to keep on going no matter how difficult life becomes. And tonight, more Indians living in the United States, they are beginning to realize something deeply uncomfortable. That loyalty may actually be getting exploited by the system that they trusted the most. Wait, can you think about the journey of typical Indian migrant? A student leaves India after parents spent years of savings, loans, or family assets on foreign education. The pressure starts immediately. Study harder, get the internship, crack Silicon Valley, secure the visa, build a life abroad. Failure is never presented as an option. And then comes the first American tech job. Suddenly, the entire family back home feels proud of you. Photos from New York, California, Seattle, it becomes symbol of success. Relative, they start saying, he made it. She settled in America. But behind those social media photos, reality, it hits hard. Longer working hours, constant fear of layoff, midnight call with the manager, weekend work, immigration anxiety, and the terrifying understanding that one bad meeting can destroy years of sacrifice. Because unlike many American workers, thousands of Indians on H-1B visas, they are tied directly to their employer. Their visa depends on the company. Their legal stay depends on the company, while their children's future often depend on the company. Some are stuck in green card backlog that could take decades to clear. And companies do understand this very, very well. Well, they know that many Indian workers, they cannot easily quit toxic workplace. They know that their employees, they are less likely to openly challenge the management. They know that many immigrants will keep on working through exhaustion because losing a job in America is not just a career setback for them. It can become an immigration emergency, and that is why many Indians, they quietly accept the conditions, others refuse. They continue working even during burnout. They stay online late into the night because teams are spread across time zones. They answer every single email during family dinner. They skip vacation because project cannot stop. And slowly, they stop working because of their career. They work because of their survival. Well, the psychological pressure, it becomes even worse because many Indians abroad, they feel trapped between two worlds. In America, they constantly fear instability. In India, they fear judgment. Returning home after years abroad, it is emotionally difficult for many immigrants because society often treats America as the ultimate success story. So, even when people are unhappy, exhausted, or mentally drained, many continue pretending that everything is fine. And this is where the emotional exploitation, it becomes brutal because many Indians, they genuinely believe loyalty would protect them. They believe that hard work would guarantee a lot of security to them. They believe that sacrificing their personal life for the company, it would eventually lead to stability, green card, and peace of mind. But now the AI era, it is changing everything. The same companies that once desperately recruited Indian engineers are now aggressively cutting jobs. Meta, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. Layoffs are spreading across Silicon Valley. Workers who spent years building systems, coding products, and helping companies grow are suddenly discovering that they can be replaced within minutes by the reconstructing email. And let's be honest, for many Indians, that realization, it feels deeply personal tonight. Because Indian immigrants, they do not just give these companies their labor. They give them their youth. They give them their health, their family time, their emotional energy. They miss their wedding, funeral, festival, important moment back home while chasing the American dream. In the end, tonight's stories, they reveal something much bigger than layoffs or visas. They reveal a changing relationship between America and Indian ambition. For decades, Indians believed that the US represented stability, success, unlimited opportunity, and in many ways, it still offers extraordinary possibilities. But tonight, that dream feels far more complicated. AI is changing jobs, immigration policies are growing harsher, economic anxiety is rising, and social tensions are becoming louder and louder. At the very same time, Indians continue powering global technology, medicine, business, and innovation. So, the real question tonight is not whether Indians can succeed abroad or not. The real question is what emotional, financial, and psychological price are people willing to pay to keep their dreams alive? I am Driti Atri, and this is Skyline.